at least the extent and then the possible direction of flow. So this is, where we are. When we met on Saturday, the conclusions were, one, we would get to UNITA to help us, at least have an idea of the extent of this thing, which, as I said, came in on Monday. We are able to get the map. But again, on the same day, a team of NEA, Gam-Petroleum, NDMA, Gambia Maritime Administration, and the Navy, yes, also at least made a patrol. We are particularly concerned about where the longshore drift is towards the southern direction from Gam-Petroleum. So our focus was on the southern part of the spill to see how far it might have gone. So at least a team went up to Pirang area, and then at least some places were spotted. Of course, this was supported by when we plotted that information on the map provided by UNITA. At least we are able to know this. So at the meeting, it was also agreed about the volume involved. And I think this was calculated, he will clarify, but this was calculated based on, what was the consignment, what was finally received. So the difference is what was spilled. And this is 70,000.
It's 73,000.
Yes, 73,000 metric tons.
Not metric tons, 73,000 liters was 73
cubic meter.
Metric tons.
Yes, 73
metric tons.
Yes.
How do you arrive at the quantification?
That's what I'm trying to explain here. The consignment is known.
What was received?
No, like what was brought in.
Let me give them the figures.
Okay.
Let me give them the figures.
No, he wants to know how we arrived at the yes.
Okay.
Like, for example, we know the ship was coming with this amount. This was amount finally received at the depot.
Yeah.
So the difference was what was spilled. So 73 metric tons. Yes, sorry, tons, yes.
73 tons.
Tons, yes.
Is it?
No, the
73,000 cubic
No,
meters.
the 70 was established quickly.
That's 73,000, 73 tons.
Yes, and it was later calculated. Yeah.
73,000 cubic meters. That's 73 tons.
I'll just ask a quick question, which will be a direct correlation to what you were saying. Does it mean the spillage didn't happen, or the source of the spillage is not from an internal storage facility of Gam-Petroleum, but it occurred on an outsource?
This spillage took place on the pipeline, on the HF4 pipeline. Let me just explain. We have a set of pipelines, 3 pipelines, that we use to discharge fuel from vessels that bring these products into our tanks, into GP tanks. So one of these pipelines is for HF4. So that is the pipeline that had a hole about half of the pipeline, which is 1.3 kilometers into the sea, because the total the distance of the whole pipeline is 2.6 kilometers. So we realized the team was when we noticed this thing in the morning. Actually, the discharge started at 3:30 in the afternoon. That is on the 27th, and it went all the way to up to 2:30 in the morning. That was the night. So that was one of the reasons why the spillage was not noticed early for it to be contained. By the time they know what happened, it was in the morning, because it was in the morning when the mooring team was going, they're going back to collect the people on the boat, on the vessel who were participating in the discharge. That's when they saw the traces of the spill. That was one of the reasons why it was not contained in time. But this is exactly what happened. The pipeline, the HF4 pipeline, had a hole which was detected by our maintenance team after doing their investigations, and they realized that this hole was right at the middle of the pipe, and as a result of that, we have the spillage. So it was not noticed until in the morning.
Okay, you will continue. Can we suspend the questions quickly after the presentation? Yeah.
So
questions.
Yes, as he said, the spillage is a result of offloading from the ship to the storage facilities. So the relay pipe is that has a problem. That's because of the this thing. So on the meeting on Saturday, because there is a national disaster contingency plan that also has a component on oil spills. So we realized that like there are levels of oil spills with different responses. So with the amount involved, that could trigger an international assistance. So one of the agreements at that meeting was we agreed with Senegal, not because we are certain that they have it, but at least with their long experience in the oil exploration industry, and the fact that they are closer and it would be easier to approach than any other country. We agreed that the representatives of the Minister of Petroleum at the meeting and that of Environment at the meeting were supposed to consult with their honorable ministers on this to initiate that process of seeing whether at least we can get the support from Senegal. So that is yet to be reported. But down the line, we also understood, in fact, it is categorically clear in the National Contingency Plan that it is the Executive Director of NDMA who should trigger that international response, not the ministry. And I'm sure they will be working on that, because since I don't think they have to be reminded on this. So that's where we are, because there were calls for a press conference, but our position is, you don't go to the press without enough information. And as much as it's an issue that needs urgent attention, that needs to be addressed, you have to go to the press with the right information, with enough information. One, when it occurred, as I said, 27, 28, the national capacity doesn't exist to tell us at the time the extent of this. We have to wait for our internal partners, and then this is yesterday that UNITA produced this map. You won't have
Yeah, thanks so
This is produced by NEA using information from UNITA. Yeah? And this is another information from UNITA on this thing. So now that we have this, at least we know the extent, and then there are indications on you can pass this around. There are of course indications of the work done by the ground survey team that also went around, the team that I announced earlier. That went around, so at least we are able to spot the oil from up to around Piram, and this is confirmed by the UNITA map. But then inside the place in Kubune area, not much. But then that doesn't mean it might not have reached there. But this was also, by the time we reached Kubune, it was only high tide. And then this, if it washes on shore, and because it is thick material, it will just stop to something else. So you can only tell how serious it is at low tide. And then the other good side about it, unlike the other, if it is light fuel that we have just dispersed and then it vaporized, this is going to remain stuck to those roots, stones, wherever they are, dry out in the heat, and then they'll peel off on their own. And of course, if there's a cleanup, it's also good to have it removed, or the soil is going to be contaminated. And then based on the quantity on the long term, this could have its own problems. So basically, this is where it is. We hope at least this area of critical international assistance will be resolved very soon, and then at least we'll be in a position to stand before the press, tell people what happened, and then what have been done so far, and what are the plans moving on ahead.
Maybe assessing from what we have seen, it might not be necessary that the decision is going to be taken by the National Disaster Management Team, because looking at it after having these pictures, we have seen that it has already almost all gone to a particular area now. That's what the pictures are showing, because it also have a time limit as to how far it can go. Because most of the quantity that was discharged, you can see has been attached to somewhere on the shoreline. So, and the traces, those small traces that we see in front of the major ocean, is an indication that a little bit passes. Otherwise, all the bulk of it is now attached to somewhere on the shoreline. So that is also comforting to know, because what it means that that's the limit of the spread. That is what these pictures are showing. So it is a damage limitation, as far as the pictures are concerned. It means that it cannot go further any longer because the quantity has already been, attached to somewhere on the so around that area, around Kubune area and the like. So it means if we want to clean it now, we can focus the cleaning of exercise on that area, on that spot where the bulk of it is shown on the map. You can just go there and collect this material and dispose it. So maybe if the team assess the situation now after having this information, it might not be necessary to call for an international help. But that decision has to be taken by the team.
Which is the team?
Any other suggestions?
When it, just to clarify, when it comes to a decision of who triggers international help, the team here actually is talking about the main regulators
Yes.
in the petroleum sector. Right? PURA is the licensing authority. National Environment Agency, of course, as the name implies, is the Environment Protection Agency. Gambia Maritime Administration, specifically established to deal with marine pollution, the MARPOL Convention in particular. Of course, National Disaster Management Authority has a National Disaster Management Contingency Plan that includes oil spills. So that means they are also central to this. So these are the four core institutions, and of course the Gam-Petroleum, the source of the spill. Policy-wise, Minister of Environment, Minister of Petroleum and Energy. So these are all important institutions in this. So Gambia Ports Authority for that matter. Gambia Navy, as we said, they were supportive in the move. Now, as you said, fine, at least we have an idea of where to concentrate on. But I mean, like the decision whether it is necessary, to seek for international assistance, as per the definition of National Disaster Contingency Management Plan, will rest with the Executive Director of NDMA.
Right. As of now, the seal, the hole, is it sealed now?
Yeah, it was fixed within 24
It was fixed.
hours.
Oh, okay, fine. So there is not going to be any more spillage.
No.
So the only issue that we have in hand is to
Clean up, to clean up what has been disturbed.
So, honorable members, if you have any questions, the floor is open.
I think we will start by really thanking you for coming over and with the primary objective of availing to the Gambian people as to what actually obtains at the Gam-Petroleum depot with regards to the fuel spillage. We all know it's of a great public concern, not only the quantity of fuel that spilled over, but again, the greatest concern was on the environmental effect it would have. My only concern is this. The managing director, the general manager of Gam-Petroleum, just stated that the decision to trigger international assistance lies with National Disaster Management Agency. But in this case, we are faced with an environmental disaster. What is the environmental assessment report saying? I think that should be the baseline. You say, yes, we need international assistance, NDMA, go out and do the mobilization. Assistance should be backed up by what? Technical expertise. So what is the environmental assessment saying?
Thank you. Let me go back on the 4th of this month. That's what started with NDMA, all the teams that I mentioned here. So the initial assessment would be to know the volume involved, which we stated here as 73,000 cubic meters. So by definition of the National Contingency Plan on Disaster, an oil spill of that magnitude requires international, you can call for international assistance. So as I said, so the fact that NDMA was present, but at that particular meeting, the agreement was, since we said Senegal first, we all agreed it's easier if you walk through the embassy. Then the connection is easily done, and then at least there's a rapid response. The agreement was, okay, the representatives of Magna and Energy at that meeting, ministers at that meeting, would establish contact with the ministers And then the ministers will see how best this is facilitated at the highest political level to have this thing. But that doesn't change the fact that even if that was happened, it was later after that, during the course of this week, today, because I followed up with this thing to see how far we are on this. Then we even realized, okay, fine. This might have been the agreement, but the reality by law is that international this thing has to be triggered by the NDMA. You see, they were at the meeting with the rest of us. Of course, we need to remind each other on what happens. And then this is collective work. They might be responsible for triggering the international response, but they don't have to be so responsible for having it done. But they need to be supported as well. So what is important here, this is known, and this is from the very beginning, it was known that we need international support. So I quite certainly believe, that's why I said, from the beginning, NDMA and others were very important here. So I'm quite sure, I have no doubt that the institution is working hard to have this thing triggered. Because you have to realize, even if it is Senegal, because we also look for Senegal, not because, let me repeat it again, not because we are 100% sure they have the capacity, but we said because of their long history in the petroleum exploration in business, it is highly likely that they would have at least facilities to help in this regard. So it will be easier to have them in than the next closest one we thought was Ghana. Which of course somebody at the meeting confirmed that Ghana has solved things. But as I said, I can't speak exactly fully on behalf of NDMA, but I have no doubt, and I would highly assume that institution is working on having this international response in place.
So the clarification, let me clarify that.
That's what I'm saying. As head of NEA, you see, we are created by law. We all have limits. If the law says that this is NEA is there for triggering this, my part is the assessment, to provide information. Which, as I said from the beginning, as NEA, from the beginning, this when we got news that UNITA is helping with this, we followed up, and then finally, when UNITA produced the maps yesterday, we shared with everyone. So that information is shared. So the most important information here, in fact, was the amount of spillage, and this was known from the very beginning. You see, so we are the environment, fine. I think that's why maybe in fact our institutions were oversighted here. As I said, we might be the environment, but the law came and created something else. That means that it supersedes us when it comes to certain decisions. I cannot make that decision. What I'm supposed to do is provide the information which we provided as to the best of our capability.
Okay, so can I just follow up just to clarify, it's the same question that you asked, just to further clarify as to what I said with regards to what I'm saying is that is the legal point. But what if we establish as the actual assessment, the survey that we did has shown that now this is the situation, and if that assessment have indicated that we don't need international assistance, we can do it ourselves, what is the point in calling for international assistance? So that is what I was saying. I'm not saying that we have to wait for them to think. I'm just saying they will look at the information provided now and assess it and see whether there is the need for us to go outside or to do it ourselves, because by assessing the impact where the situation is, we can easily look at make that determination. We cannot just blindly go and call. If you call them and they come and say that this is something that we could have easily handled. That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying that decision will be taken by the committee that is responsible. They will look at this information and assess. That is when because I don't think they will just blindly get to go and invite the international committee for assistance. They must assess what is the situation as of now. They did not have that information then, but now they have been provided.
I just have a final intervention, which I will sorry just to let you know. Thank you very much for that.
Okay.
If I get you correctly, which means as per the assessment of NEA, the volume of leakage requires an international assistance.
No.
I will come back. You said when you made the assessment, the quantity was 73,000 tons.
No.
73 tons, not so. It was 73 tons.
Yeah.
Okay? And a team was summoned. So based on the volume of the leakage, you assume that you require an international assistance, and Senegal was the nearest point of call. My question here is, I just want us to establish something, because at the end of the day, we have oversight responsibilities, and we cannot perform it in a vacuum. We are here to set standards. This is what you are going to work on. We know this is what you do, and tomorrow when we meet, you will know what to ask and what not to ask. Do we require it based on your initial assessment, which will be subject to evaluation when you guys meet, or do we require it?
You see, the assessment here, as I said, the assessment here is information we have at hand. So technically, we can call it because information we have at hand, and this was gathered through a process. The volume was gathered through a process of knowing how much the cargo brought in, how much was finally offloaded. Received, offloaded, and then the balance was what is assumed to be received. So that was how that was assessed. Information from the ship, what was finally loaded, then the balance was what went inside. The extent, the assessment of the extent. This is known through satellite imagery by Unity, which I just shared. And I just superimposed the information that we collected from the field. Put it there. You see, there is a national disaster contingency plan that has a component on oil spill. So what I said at the meeting on Saturday, 4th of at Gam-Petroleum complex, it was highlighted that the volume, as per the national contingency plan, the volume involved, the country would ask for international assistance if the capacity doesn't exist. And I said from the very beginning, the country doesn't have capacity to clean up. One, this is because the basic equipment of booms is not available at Gam-Petroleum. Ports has, when they were conducted, my understanding was the capacity to deploy and contain wasn't there. So, since that's the case, and then there is a national document, legal document, that says if this volume is involved, you can trigger this. So that's how the decision came up. So to trigger that, as I said, now to cut it short, that's the responsibility for MDNA under their leadership. Because we need to emphasize that in public service, mandates are leadership positions. It means somebody has to be behind you to support you in the process. You have to work with others, so that at the end it's a collective responsibility, to see that at least what is necessary is done. So I hope that.
Doctor, please. Doctor, yes.
Yes, thank you very much. I think one of the also, in addition to what my boss has said, one of the reasons why that international aspect is not triggered is the fact that we have to know the extent of the spill, so that when we call for international support, we already know where the problem lies, and the site will be concentrated on that. And as a result, that very on Saturday when the meeting was held, one of the things is to engage UNITA to support in that aspect. And that map that you see here was actually supplied yesterday. So we have to put all, and including our team also, the local team that went around also conducted that survey on Sunday. So we have to put all those facts together, so that if you want to engage international bodies, we already know where the extent of the spillage, so that the concentration can be there. And sometimes actually, we can easily call it, but at the end of the day, the mobilization or whatever, but it's important that they know the extent of the spillage, so that when they come, then there will be a focus of how this is supposed to be done. So that's why almost all this, from the way you get it, it was almost shared. So even yesterday we have a debriefing, because on Sunday, this team went there to do it. I said, we have to ask them to come and meet with all those key stakeholders, particularly GMA and NDMA, to have a briefing on this is what we have found. Now what next are we going to do? So it is an emergency, it has to need an emergency response, but we have to get the facts before you can easily come up with something that will really address the problem.
Okay, now for Gam-Petroleum. Gam-Petroleum.
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Given the facts so far available, Do you think it is necessary to seek international assistance?
No, that is what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying. That is a decision to be taken by the response team. Yes. They will assess the information gathered and then come up with that decision.
The reason why I asked that question because in your presentation, I thought you said that.
And that is a decision that they have to take.
Okay.
Who is that team?
That's the response team, the disaster, the emergency response team that he is talking about, which comprises.
To say with the team,
Sorry.
yeah, to clarify for you, as I said, if I said it from maybe just regulators that are in this business. National Environment Agency, Environmental Protection is one. Public Utilities Regulatory Authority for licensing of businesses in this sector. Gambian Maritime Administration for marine pollution. National Disaster Management Agency for any kind of disaster that involves this one. Policy level, these are agencies. Ministries, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Petroleum and Energy.
Okay, I want to ask, sorry, excuse me, are you working within a timeframe? Because I think it's an emergency. We agree it's an emergency. And, you know, since it's an emergency, you know, we cannot allow, you know, our response to continue indefinitely. Have you considered the timeline during your meetings?
Yes, we consider time, but as I said, it's good to give yourself 1 month, 2 months, you know, if you definitely know that you can handle it on your own. You know, let's face it, we don't have the capacity to do so. You see, as I said, we could have at least, one of the easiest, cheapest or simplest things that you can get in an oil spill are oil booms. You know, these are materials that are floatable materials. You have an oil spill, spread it around, it contains oil. Just go scoop it up and then
Okay.
and just so let's let it let's get it clear.
No, we understand.
So we cannot constrain ourselves, and then in the end we come back, we don't do it. So what we are doing is simple. Here, at least for now, we are able to know the extent, potential extent, from the maps that we have. Now we know where the concentration is. Yeah, and then as I said, NDM is not here. I cannot speak on their behalf, but I certainly will believe. That office is also working tirelessly to at least, have whatever is necessary to have this thing done. Our next move, because all this while during the daytime, it is always high tide. Now that we know where the concentration is, our next move is to wait for at least next prolonged low tide during daytime to at least move to this location where we have this to see how much of it has now washed offshore.
Okay. Where is the direction of the longshore drift?
Yes, south, from point of discharge, allows us on that map. Because if you look at the discharge, if you have the map, okay.
Permanent Secretary Environment.
And
I
I
think
would
you can
have
be able to.
yes.
Afternoon.
Yes, so this star here is Gam-Petroleum. I'll just give it back to you. So the pipes are laid this way. You can just assume that this is the flow of discharge. So the ship would have been somewhere around here.
So these are two lines, the LPG line.
Okay, good.
And the before.
Yes. So as you just sketch here, at least the ship would have been somewhere around here. Yeah? And then these are the pipelines that are here. So obviously, if you look at where the bulk of this thing is, then the drip is this way. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is supposed to be a line of politics. Of course, I agree entirely with you when you said it's an accident. It was not foreseen. When Gam-Petroleum was established, I think these were some of the things that need to be taken into consideration. I think they should have been better prepared for such emergencies. Since that was not the case, I think in the future, I think you should consider very seriously, so that in such events, you could contain it even before it spreads further. For example, getting is it boom?
Boom, yes.
Yeah, if you can have your own boom, so that as soon as it occurs, and you just quickly move into action, then you know, stop the spillage and then stop the spillage, or at least contain it. Yeah, maybe. Honorable
Yes.
Member for Basing.
Thank you, members, for coming to the meeting about the national concern. I have a few questions to ask. That is, one, the Gam-Petroleum, the risk management department. Whether the risk management, you have a risk management department within Gam-Petroleum who looks after all these risk exposures and to updating the management on them on monthly basis. And the other question was, my chair you mentioned it. I was saying how best are Gam-Petroleum making to have this boom in place, because if this is not the first time it is happening, or maybe this is the first time you might expect to happen, as long as you are in business. So how best are you making to have this boom in place, so that if you have it in place, whenever it occurs, there will be quick, swift action to make sure you remedy the spillage not to go further.
Yeah.
So we are asking these questions, and the other one is, yeah, let me just get this one.
Okay.
Yes, as of now.
Okay. Well, there is an emergency. It has not been approved as of now. One thing I want to also put forward here for people to understand is that Gam-Petroleum was operating within an environment that was not really concerned about compliance at the time. We can put it that way, because we all know what used to happen because of its history. So as a result of that, it did not have quite a lot of things that it should have, as a depot at the time. And these things have been identified, and we are working towards establishing them. Some of them are something like you have just said. So just to clarify, let me show you what we have. So most of these things should have been there. Where is the response? The materials that we already know, the materials that we should have according to the response plan, but we don't have them. You see, the available ones are these absorbent roll. We should have this. These are materials that are supposed to be in place with Gam-Petroleum in case this kind of things happen, in order to contain it. All these are available except the two, which is what we are talking about, the 500-meter boom. At least this is a very big, and its usage also requires some training. It's not just having it, but the people who are going to use it need the training. That is the limitation even GPA had at the moment. They have it, but they don't have people trained to use it. So, that is the only level. And the tugboat, we also don't have a tugboat as of now. That is also something that we need to. Those are the two we don't have. All the other materials, like absorbent roll, packet of absorbent parts, bags of absorbent boom, packet of waste collection bay nylon, bucket of leak block chemical, cordon of tape. These things we have. And this is all from the response plan. We have a plan. However, because of the nature of this spill, most of those things would only be required at the cleaning, for the cleaning, not to contain. There are two things. Containing the spill at the time it was taking place, where this boom would be more useful. That is supposed to be able to contain so that it will not spread. At that point, it escaped. There are two stages. At that stage, it has escaped. But at the stage it is now, is to clean up where it has now gotten to onto the shore. It is just to clean the thing now, which is the second stage. So once it has escaped the first level, which we don't have, that's the capacity we are lacking, to be honest. We lack that capacity to contain it as it happened. When this spill happened before it spread, how do you contain it there? And these are the materials that you need to do that, which we don't have. So because of that, it has to be allowed to settle as it has done now. So the next stage is to clean up. So we have a response plan, but the plan could not be utilized fully simply because we don't have the capacity that is required.
So, yes, that is, Chairman, 1 minute. It's one question you answered. The first question you didn't answer. Because
Which is the first question?
That's the risk.
We want to have this, they will provide this. So what do you want to know about this department?
No.
That's HSS.
You know, because when I asked about the boom, you now said you have an establishment response team.
Yes.
So, but also you need to have a risk assessment team whereby there will be, because hadn't been there was a team, a risk assessment team, they would have been making routine checkup of all these equipments and so on, whereby they will be updating management on monthly basis.
They have, that is what I'm saying.
Yes, so
they have that.
And how equipped are they?
They have it. So let me just give the maintenance. He's part of that team. Let me give him so that he will explain to you what they have in place. In fact, that is the reason why they are able to contain the pipeline itself when they realized that this thing happened. You know, this is submerged in water, so you cannot always know what is going on and how it happened. They have already established that. But as far as the normal routine, as we are talking about, is concerned, they have this thing, and we are aware of the state of the assets that we are using as we speak. We are aware of that, and we are managing it consistently. However, there are limitations. But let me allow him to explain to you the technical details, how they are managing these things as far as the risk management is concerned.
Okay.
Can explain that?
Good afternoon. Just to give a brief detail of what we have at Gam-Petroleum, we have 3 lines that are from the depot going at sea, each line with a length of 2.6 kilometers. Now, one is for LPG, the other is for light fuels, which is gasoline, diesel, and kerosene, and the other one is for heavy fuel. These materials are made from APE, marine grade, which is a mild steel, and it is also prone to corrosion, which we are aware of, and we are doing our best to combat these issues. But the thing is, the depot is also aging, and since we started operation today, it's about 14 years. So the cost,
17 years.
17 years to be precise. Yes, and the cost of this spillage is not due to a lapse on the side of the response team or the maintenance team, because we are doing our best to make sure that the pipes are in good working order. But sometimes these materials are supplied with what we call industrial defects. And when an industrial defect happens on a piece of a metal, it means when corrosion is happening, the rate of growth varies in the different parts of the material itself. You have a single material, it is affected by corrosion, but the rate of growth varies. So when the rate of growth varies, it means the depletion of the oxide layer of this material, would also vary, and it means the thickness of the material will gradually go down. So this is what causes the hole. This is why it affects only one piece. So what we were doing as the engineering department or the maintenance, on our side, our key objective was to find the cause of this spill. It was to find the cause of this spill, which we did, because we were able to find the cause within 24 hours. Which when we also put up a quick response to see how best it can actually be fixed as soon as possible, at least to be sure that the pipe would be ready for service. So which we did, and as we speak right now, it is already fixed. As we speak right now, it is already fixed. But we are always working on trying to see how best we can maintain our pipes so that they can be in good working order.
And you can also explain to him why it was not detected until this happened, because the corrosion, it was an internal corrosion. So you can explain to him. That was one of the the main reason why it was not detected.
So as I said, because of the fact it's mild steel, when mild steel is submerged underwater, corrosion tend to stop on the external part of the pipe, because corrosion always happens when you have water mixed with air. That is when corrosion can grow. So the external part of the pipe, there is no corrosion, more or less, because it's already submerged in water, there is no air. But the internal part, there is corrosion happening. Even though what we are doing to contain that corrosion would only slow it down, but it doesn't mean it will stop it 100%. So, you know, this plus the defects is what caused this issue, and the corrosion is from the inside coming out. So as we pump is when that portion ruptured, and then the leakage was happening, and it was also at night. So this was why it was not detected, but during the day it was already detected in the morning, but by then it was already everywhere. So you cannot contain it at that time. Even if we had booms, you know, if we didn't realize it early, it cannot be contained. And the other thing that we need to understand is heavy fuel is not like other fuels. When other fuel spills, if it is not contained, you know, within a short period of time, it can contaminate more or less everything, the sand and everything. But heavy fuel, once it is washed out on shore, if it is on the ground, it will just solidify on sand, and it can just be, you know, removed. Otherwise, if it comes into contact with any material, being it rocks or so, it tends to stick there, because when it is being supplied, it is always supplied at a high temperature of around 50 degrees because of its viscosity. So it is hot. So once it is spilled, the temperature goes down, then it just solidifies somewhere. So the issue, as he said here, is to find out where exactly it is, and then
clean it up.
Yeah, and clean it up. But it's not something that it will not go back to the river. That's
the reason why I ask, precaution is cheaper than
Yes.
damage. So it's easier to have a precaution and cheaper when it comes to our economy than to repair.
Yes,
And
yes,
also really damage.
yes, that is true. But right now we're doing that because of the age. We are also working on a new pipeline. That's what we are working on presently. My GM can attest to that. We are working on a new pipeline.
To confirm that we are doing that, is there is already a project of installing a new backup pipeline, three set of pipeline, you know, to act as a backup to the existing ones. That also is part of the mitigation process. But as he said, this industry, these are unavoidable. You cannot contain everything 100%. Sometimes these things can happen. This is the first time it has happened. You know, so it tells you how, because the operation is so risky that anybody there, before somebody will tell you to take care, you know, you will be the first person to make sure that you take care, because your life is at risk. So these things are taken care of. But we cannot avoid all these incidents 100%. Right now, what we can do, but it's a learning process. We have learned a lot from this incident as to what needs to be in place. In fact, all the agencies who came reiterated on these issues. So we are going to put more facilities in place to make sure that it can be contained. Like the things that are not available now, we have seen that it is definitely important that they are available, and we'll make sure that people are trained. You know, so those things will be for the future. But for now, this is what has happened, and the actions that we have taken is to fix it immediately within 24 hours. We have a team of engineers that we are capable of doing that. Right now, what is left is to for everybody, all the stakeholders, to come together and clean up the spill that has attached itself on our shore.
Thank you. Chair, back to you.
Yes, Honorable Cisse.
Jim
West.
Mr. Chair, in your introduction to the purpose of this meeting, and you've put across that, and we've gotten information that this is happening, and of course during the director's deliberation, he made clear that yes, it's very certain that this is happening. He has also talked about the day that it started, and when it was realized, and when it has been fixed. And if you could quickly remind me of this, when has it happened?
On the 27th, you know, it started on the 27th afternoon,
Yes.
and the discharge was completed in the morning around 2:30 in the morning. So that was night, you know, of 28, of the 28. So, but we realized because it was night, it was not noticed until in the morning, around 7:30. That's when the boat that was going to pick the members of the team that were on the vessel, that where they spent the night, they were going to pick them. That's when they saw the spread of the oil, and they realized that there was an oil spill, and that's when all these things started.
So when has it been fixed?
It was fixed on this happened on the 28th, on the 29th, on the 12th. No, I mean the discovery was done on the 28th.
On the 28th.
On the 28th.
Okay.
And then from the 28th, they've been searching. You know, remember this is a long line, so they're about 2.6 kilometers, 2.6 kilometers to be precise. So they've been searching where the hole is, so that it will be fixed. So that took about 24 hours. So it means that on the 30th is when it was detected and fixed. By the 30th, the problem has already been fixed.
All right. Does this happen during the offloading?
Yeah, it happened around. We believe that it happened around the end of the around the end of the discharge. Because if it had happened at the beginning, then we would have lost all the product, because the total quantity that was on the ship was about 1,500 metric tons. You understand? And we received 1,400 and something. The difference is what we are told. So if it has started from the time of the starting of the discharge, then all this quantity would have been as part of the spill. So we believe that it started around the end of the process.
This vessel came from where?
Well, I don't know where the vessel comes from, but the vessel's name is MT-ST Stoller. MT-ST Stoller. Stoller, S-T-U-R-L-A. I don't have the information. Where it comes from.
Your pipes. How long does a pipe length stays with you? You know, here I'm talking about the quality of it. How long does it stay with you? How long do you think a pipe can serve?
Yes.
Before you realize such issues?
Normally, a pipe like marine grade, normally it can have a lifespan of about 20 years with proper maintenance and things like that.
Part of this pipe where the leakage happens?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. What I was explaining is some of these leakages can happen, but it is due to a defect that is actually on the pipe. Now, these are things that you cannot see. You can buy material from suppliers. When it is supplied, it's possible that there can be a defect. And when there is a defect, if corrosion takes its toll, always the rate of growth on that part where the defect is varies from the others. And this is why we had that hole. So you can see when discharge commenced, there was nothing like a leakage, but towards the end is when it happened. So it was like, because it was growing, that is why you have that hole, but it is fixed. It is already fixed.
Do you think the space of that hole and the amount that has been leaked, how do you see that?
No. The amount, the size of the hole is very, very small. It's like about maybe we would say around 1 centimeter in diameter. It's a small hole, but the issue is the vessel is actually pumping on high pressure. The pressure we were pumping at about 6.5 to 7 bars.
The temperature of the heat.
And the
yes,
temperature
yes.
also.
So and the other thing is you also have to look at the distance of where the depot is and where pumping or discharge was being done. Because the thing is, the river where the pipes are always on the low side, while the depot on the high side. So as it is pumping, and this was at around 1.7 to 1.8, so it was deep in the water. So you would see that as pumping is happening, you would have, product being lost because it is at the lowest point. So if it was at the highest point, it wouldn't be as much as what we are already anticipating right now.
Like you are climbing a mountain.
Yes, you are climbing. So yeah.
Yes, finally, what I'm trying to ascertain is that the space of that hole.
Yes.
And the time that it has stayed before the issue has been addressed.
Yes.
And do you think the amount that is being leaked, you know, you said yes, this hole could have released this amount, or it would have been more than this. You know, that's what I'm
Okay.
Well, let me just give him an indication that it cannot be. Why? Because of the figures.
Okay.
Just based on the figures, it can tell you, even without going to the technicalities.
Okay.
The ship brought 1,500 metric tons and we received 1,004. The difference is 70. So there is no way that anything else could have escaped anywhere.
Okay.
Just by knowing the quantities involved. Then, you know, you can go into the technical details. But just by looking at the figures, we are sure that this is what has.
Maybe just to add on to that, it's just like when you have a NAWEC pipe, and sometimes you have a piers on that pipe that do not avoid the water going to the supply, but you always
because
see
of the
this
pressure.
because of the pressure. You always see that water, and then at some point you said the entire area is wet, but you see what comes from that pipe is always very, very small. But after a long period, then you will see the entire area is wet.
And the nature of
So
HFO, once you drop it on water, it starts spreading. That's the nature of the product. You drop even one drop, you will see it will start spreading like that.
And finally, to NEA, I want to ask your interaction with the people living in those environments. You know, what were your advice given to them? You know, as far as those issues are concerned, because some actually feel a little bit threatened, and more especially for those whose livelihood depends on the river. And what advice have you given to them? And since you've highlighted that you don't know how long is it going to take you people to have the booms, you know, so that you can address that. You know, do you discuss with them or to advise them on how to protect themselves? And do you think the longer it stays in the water, doesn't it have a negative impact, you know, on the life of the people in those environments and on the aquatics as well?
Okay, thank you. I'll start with the boom. At this point, the booms are useless. We don't need the booms anymore. I said about the booms, that's where when the leak is happening, then you can easily contain. That's the purpose of the boom. Now the boom has no use in this case. Okay. As he also said, we are dealing with heavy fall, and then its core characteristics are so that now we can safely assume that it is totally washed ashore.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't have the property of light fall, why it can easily contaminate, seep into the soil and contaminate. When it gets to a surface, it sits on top of it. So now what we are sure that is happening now, if you go around those areas, if there are rocks, at this point you find all the rocks covered, with dark material. And then because we have a lot of mangroves there, we are sure that when you go there right now, the roots, branches of the mangrove are closer to the soil are all covered with black. With this material. We've so far not had any direct contact with the communities as meetings and then sitting with them to talk about this. No. Because when we went on the collective, what we wanted, at least in fact, these are not entire communities. These are the few fishermen that we came across in this to ask for information on the spread of these things. And okay, it is such that environmentally, as I said, we can, as I said, we safely assume it is washed on shore now. So on the marine water part, for now, we don't anticipate much of a problem, let's say, to fish and other forms of life. But definitely, the quantity involved, especially if you look at the map, where the red concentration is, at that part now, any plant that is there, and they breathe like you. So at least there is oxygen inhibition at that area. And then we assume again the entire flow of that area would be.
Show them these things so that they will understand.
Okay.
Yes, one that was just, you can play it, it's a video.
So the problems are there, there's no doubt about that. One, the plants are covered, you are sure of that the plants are covered, the roots are covered, the branches that are as low, close to the things are covered, for one. Two, any soil in that area is fully covered. With this, it has to be removed. And then this is oil. Of course, with the spread, it blocks the, or the free movement of water or air inside is blocked, so any life is there is threatened. So this is a problem. It is there, it has to be solved. That's the hard part.
So the threat to marine life is zero for now because it has already been washed ashore. So it will not stay in the river, in the sea as people think. There is no threat to the marine life as far as this spill is concerned. It has already gone. The only damage it will cause is whatever it has gotten in contact with. If it is live, obviously it will affect it at that point. But apart from that, there is no further damage that is expected from the spill.
No, we can. No. You see, the reality is, I mean, as I said, let's get.
No, I just want to say marine because.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think I clarified that. The spill, as I said, if you look at it now, this is heavy fuel, unlike the other one. If it is light fuel, it evaporates easily. So what we have seen here from this is now it has almost settled onshore, and this is a vast area. It's a very big area because by assessment of UNITA, at least not where it is concentrated, but from the northern tip of where it was spotted to the southern tip of where it is was spotted, a 5 kilometer square area. So now, if you look at where it is, where the big chunk is, so that's a big problem. We have to be realistic. That's a very big problem because if all of that has washed offshore, so any soil cover that area. So long as this stays there, it's no more productive in terms of animal life.
And there are monkeys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the monkeys can move.
Mangroves can be
Yes, there are mangroves there.
And then you have
Yes,
to breed.
exactly.
Yeah.
So any life that is on the right thing is on a threat.
No, that is why
that
the
is
cleaning is necessary.
That is the hard reality. There is no up and down with that. To be realistic with you. The mangroves as well, because as long as this thing remains stuck to the branches, to the roots, that's a problem. Yes.
Honorable Caesars had
Of course, we are two sisters. I said, Caesar, I raise my hand. Even though I come late.
Oh, okay, Kamara, then Cisse, and then
Why Kamara, then Caesar? Caesar and Kamara. Caesar is my son.
Well, thank you. No, I'm not getting action. Thank you very much. And then I have to thank our guests from NEA and the Gam-Petroleum, and also, I think those are the two.
Yes.
And the ministry. And the ministry. In fact, the last issue that we are talking about here, that's what I'm interested most because I'm looking at the health aspect of it that affect the ecosystem, the life, the marine lives, and so on. But I'm definitely very happy with your submission, and I will take your words by that. These things have to be removed. That is it. That's the hard part. Yeah, that is it. I think I will need to stop there. Then we move on that with them. We see how best these things can be addressed.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Cisse.
Can I take for granted that since marine life is not affected, this is not dangerous? Okay, since it is no risk.
Yeah,
Let me complete my question. You can answer it. You can refine my question. No, foundation. My question is, I wanted to take your submission as a convincing one that since you said he talked about the marine life, and I know marine life is linked to human life. My original question was going to be, is there any risk for human life as far as the spirit is concerned? I just want to link it, but now I can just forgo that and ask the question.
Yes, you see, the problem with marine, the risk for human life will come through the food chain. Usually, that's the reason. Was contact with heavy fuel, as far as the mine is concerned, doesn't pose any risk. But we've seen people working in heavy fuel where they are already working down. So especially where you have it. So the direct contact with the oil doesn't pose any health risks. And then here, the possibility of, let's say, fish swallowing this and then people eating, that's also very low. As I said, from the assessment from the maps, now we've seen where the bulk of is. And what is certain from this, that everything there is going to be washed ashore. And this is a very big area. It's a very big area. So that's where the problem. So anything of life in that area, because as I said, like mangroves are fish breeding and brooding grounds. So they will breed there and then the juveniles will stay, brood and go. So we can safely assume, if this is let's say the breeding season or broom season with nearly loss a huge loss of fish life. That's also it. But the risk to human life, definitely I can say that is very, very minimal. Yes.
Can I come? Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Chairman. I just want to first of all apologize for coming here, but that was because we didn't get any information about coming here. I was here earlier on in the morning to attend the FPAC assessment with the minister. But when I called the ED and then the minister said, you know what, you can't stay, you know, go and join them because you know this is an emergency. And that's exactly the part I want to commend you all for recognizing that it's an emergency. And I think all and sundry have to recognize that. In fact, like Edie said, the meeting on Saturday, we started pointing fingers at each other. The meeting was very heated. We were very realistic, you know, and very honest with each other. Where are the lapses, as you are inquiring? Because if you don't know the lapses, this is a warning shot. It can happen again. It can even be worse. And that's the reason why we have to deal with where are the gaps, like I'm glad the MD is very honest with us, that this is an institution that has been operating in an opaque environment. And we have not been able to do the enforcement and the environmental monitoring as required, you know, from the last regime, you know. One of the erstwhile executive directors of NEA said when he goes to the door there, you know, they tell him, you know, you have to get permission from State House to enter. That's the executive director of NEA. So you can imagine back in the last republic. But like my minister is saying, you know, we've gotten into a new dispensation. So we don't have excuses anymore, you know, of throwing the blame back. Now we really have to task ourselves. Number one, like the ED said, imagine, what do we do to clean up this mess now? And what do we do, like Honorable is saying, to avoid such a situation going forward? I'm glad one thing, it's a blessing in disguise. This is happening just before our budget sessions. So, honorable members, you can be prepared. I'm going to come here with Edie, and we're going to ask for us to put our money where our mouth is. We've heard what Edie is saying about the lack of capacity that we have. And the thing is, and I would want to implore on this committee to go out there and see for yourself this situation. I would want you to implore, because when you get there, remember now the Gambia is also doing a lot of re-export of fuel to Mali. You go there as you are approaching from Lamen to this place, you see nothing less than 200 trucks from Mali, tanks.
Yeah.
This was not, this used to not obtain before. Now that's also another signal, and it's a situation that we have to deal with. Imagine 200 tankers all filled with that. We saw the incident in Ghana. We saw the incident in other places. So these are all signals out there that we must put our house in order. Otherwise, this is a mild disaster that we are dealing with here. And basically, us at the ministry, this is the message the minister wants me to convey to this August Assembly, that it's a blessing in disguise that the budget session is coming soon, and some of the lack of capacity or equipment, we can actually do budgetary moves, you know, to try to solve. And this will also encourage our partners that, you know, really the Gambian government is serious about this. They don't wait for disaster to happen and then just stretch out their hands, you know, and say, can you come and help me clean up my house? Thank you very much.
This one, no, you can last. Thank you very much, and I think I would start by commending both the director for NAA and the maintenance manager for GP for being blunt with us and giving us some detailed explanations. Since we've established the environmental hazard that we are faced with, let's talk about the losses. My first question now will be, what is the material value of the 73 tons that was lost? And who bears the material lost?
It's just to look at what the price is.
But you are the,
as of now.
You are the general manager, you tell us the money.
Yes, you know, it's like as of, you know, these prices move as of yesterday.
No, as at the time you were discharging it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know the price at that time, but as of yesterday, I established the price is around 810 for HFO. Can you just?
Okay, we can do that later, but who
Yes,
bears
can
the
do that.
material?
So it was-
Who bears the
It's
material?
800, for example, it's 810 per ton. If you calculate that against the
what?
it's $810.
Dollars.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, per ton.
You have 73 tons.
Yeah, 73 tons. If you so that is the loss, and that is going to be borne by GP
By
because
Gam-Petroleum.
it belongs to somebody.
Okay, now that takes me to my other question. What risk mitigating or control strategies did you adopt when you realized the risks before confirming the quantity that was received?
Well, that is what I said. The maintenance team straight away started to scan.
I'm not talking about that. You said you quantified the spillage based on how much was in the ship
Yes,
and how much was received,
Yes.
and the difference was the spillage.
yes.
Now my question is, when you were verifying what was received, what control mechanisms did you adopt? Were there any independent verifiers?
Yes, the independent variable, that's SGS.
SGS. huh?
SGS, yes.
Okay.
In fact, they are the ones who gave the
Who
figure.
is SGS?
It is a company, it's a verifier company, which is a Senegalese company, but they have a representation in Gambia. So some of the operators use them to verify, like in this case, they were assigned by Siso Oil, who was the recipient of the HFO, to verify for him. So that's what they do when they are coming. They will bring a verifier who will be there to confirm this figure so that they will not just take it from GP. So there is always an independent verifier who will give them the actual figures. And it is that confirmation that we also take, because at least that is what people will accept. If we just say it's GP, people will not accept. So the verifier will agree with what this is the.
You know why this question is important? Because at the end of the day, the Gam-Petroleum is going to bear the loss. And in one way or the other, this is a material value.
Yeah.
It is going to reflect somewhere. So it will really tell well of us if at all we should go ahead with this oversight function without establishing the material loss.
Yeah.
So while we also want to know what steps you take, because at the end of the day, if we are doing any confirmation, we'll do our triangulation. Again. So my final question on that before I go to the final segment is, does that confirm with your internal rules? Because normally when you work in an institution, anything can happen. Let's take a walkthrough. If at all today you realize there's a fraud in GP, for example, a safe was broken, would you call SGS to come and do confirmation before you allow the cashier to take custody of his cash?
No.
How does the two scenario differ?
No. This one is the product which is being discharged from a vessel, and it belongs to somebody, you know. So that person would like an independent somebody, an institution or person who is qualified to do the verification for them, so that they will know that what GP is telling them is the reality, you know, for them to have the assurance. This is the way it happens. So in this case,
I'm sorry, but it doesn't belong to a person now. It belongs to GP.
no, I'm telling you, listen, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying the product belongs to somebody.
At the time of delivery,
At the time of it belongs to somebody.
I'm not talking about what is received. I'm talking about the material loss.
That is exactly what I'm saying. You know, to establish the material loss, you have to also know to who does it belong. Who are you going to pay?
Who is paying it?
That's what I'm saying. It's the GP that is going to pay.
Then HTS alone cannot do the verification.
Who?
The part that belongs to GP is no longer the property of HGS. You should have invited HGS and invite an independent verifier who was going to serve the interests of the people.
Do you know why?
Yes.
GP is an institution. We have qualified people who are doing that.
Okay, go.
And these figures, I agree. It's not just GP, SGS that will just come and say this is the
Then
figure.
who else was there?
The operation team is there.
And the operations team?
Yeah.
Okay.
They are the
that's
ones
fine.
who they are the ones who handle this process. So we have our team. We don't need independent people to tell us what is going on. It is the outsiders who we are dealing with who need an independent verifier to confirm.
Okay, let me help you, Mr. General Manager. You have your team.
Yes.
That team is responsible for internal operations.
Yes.
That is when all operations are going normally.
Yes.
This was an unforeseen circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
It falls outside the confines of your normal operation.
Mm-hmm.
And as you have said, it have never happened.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. There could be several dimensions. The gentleman there, the honorable member asked you whether the hole in the pipe was big enough for that sufficient thing to go out. Which means when things happen, so many things come to mind. So we are here to send the right message to the public that look, what happened is this. So we should not leave any room for ambiguity.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you understand.
Yeah, I think it was. You can call.
Okay?
I think, for example, if you look at this committee is a subset of a main committee, and they expect whatever your responsibility is it whenever you give it to the bigger committee, they expect you must have done a very good job. So in a sense, in a government setting, we expect qualified expertise to able to do that. Now, for GP's perspective, they have all the necessary technicians that will be able to, because this is also a government thing. So we don't expect to do something, but now, as far as they are concerned, they have expertise that qualified enough to give them important information with respect to this. Now, if somebody who is now the owner of the product, if you leave it with GP, they will think that okay, because this is they may not do what is right. So they are the one who bring an independent person. I can remember SGS is a very reputable industry dealing with oil-related issues. So they come and they said, okay, these people gave us these figures of maybe 73,000 tons or 73 metric tons. Can we give us an independent to see whether what they are confirmed, whether what they are giving to us is what is there? So where there is differences, these two expertise will see and agree, because they are there to serve the interests of the country. So this is just like your subcommittee giving the task to be able to report to the main body on issues that they felt you can do. So this is the kind of scenario how it works. It's just like
that is why
they advise you.
That is why after the discharge, there is a document that is signed between GP and the independent person who is representing the customer, our customer. In this case, the person who owns the product that is being brought.
Do you have internal control in GP?
Yeah.
Were they part of the people who did the verification?
You mean you mean the internal audit?
Yes.
No, those ones will only come into play when the product is now in our tanks. At this stage, it is the operations department and the representative of the importer who handles it, because it's a technical issue.
Okay.
When the discharge is taking place.
Now we leave it at that. You establish the
At the same point,
let me just clarify something.
Let him.
Yes.
Can I help?
No, let him buttress.
Let me just clarify something. If I understand you right, I see where you're heading at. What I'm saying is, when a vessel comes, okay, it is stated that this vessel has brought 1,000 metric tons, for example. Before discharge commences, there is a calculation that is done by our team member to ascertain the actual quantity which is in the vessel, to confirm whether it's 1,000 or it's less than 1,000 before discharge commences. When discharge is also in progress, we have monitors that shows the amount of product in our tanks at any given time. So we already knew how much product was in the vessel.
And how much was received?
And how much was received. So I think this is the basis to know exactly how much was lost.
Yeah, that is why we
Thank
know.
you. Allow me to finish. I just have last question. I'm done with it.
You can go to questions when he's done. Yeah.
I'm just finished. This one will have to do with, and thank you for the early intervention. I will go to my initial question. He said we couldn't contain the spill because there were no booms. And having listened keenly, the only cleanup exercise we have now is we are kind of relying on the divine intervention of Allah. We are hoping that it drifts ashore, or it gets hung on the roots of some mangroves, or it goes on the sand, or it sticks to some stone. Not so. So, I mean, we don't have the booms. But yes.
Yes.
You know where I'm going.
Yes,
so you come.
it is what I'm saying. Like, maybe let me clarify with the booms.
Yeah.
I was just trying to say, like when oil spill is happening, the easiest, if it is known, of course. But here is something that's happened overnight. It wasn't known until in the morning. So what I was trying to say with the booms was that it's one of the easiest and quickest ways. It is happening, you realize it, daylight, everyone sees it spewing everywhere, deploy the booms. Okay, that was not possible. As they said, it was overnight.
Now, how do we clean it?
That's what I'm coming to now. And even again, it might be available, but the capacity to use is not there. As he also said, they confirmed that GPA in fact has the booms, but the capacity to deploy and then maintain was in there. So naturally, the thing has to move. So what I've just said is that we look at the maps, at least we know where the oil has settled in. But if the spill was 27 to the morning of 28, we got to UNITA, and then finally UNITA produced a map. This is a map of yesterday. So at least how many days of 3-4 days of movement, and we've seen where the bulk of the oil is. You know, which at least gives us at least sense of relief for where to focus. So again, with this situation, I said you can safely assume that the bulk of it, the very, very high bulk of it, is all going to be washed onshore. If it washes onshore, it means it is going to be stuck on stones, if it is a rocky area, not coming, it is going to be stuck on roots of mangroves and then the entire soil area. Then that makes it easy to clean. Yeah. That makes it easy to collect. Because one thing about this one again, I think the mistake we made, we should have, well anyway, maybe an oversight, we should have at least brought a stone sample where this was.
These are here, that's why.
No, I mean physically. It's difficult to read from this. Yes, it's difficult to read from this. But please, if you go to Gam-Petroleum, at least their team, started collecting the stones that were already and then packing them somewhere. So that is the beauty of it. But as I said, this is a big spill. It's a very big area. So this means it's a massive cleanup exercise. So even, as I said, I have no reason to doubt that NDM is not working on this, but even if in the end we are able to, because the next thing we want to do now, as I said, when we went there on Sunday, because of high tide, we couldn't establish. So we are waiting for a prolonged period of low tide during the day, and we move on. And because it is heavy fall, if it is here, it is hardly going to move away. So it's not like the one that easily flows. If it gets offshore, so it's hardly going to move away substantially from this area. So we can be sure that go there tomorrow, 2 or 3 days, and it's still going to be there. If it settles, it sits. And then because it is heavy, it doesn't sit. So if it settles on top of sand, you can easily scoop it up. It's not seeping into it. So that's our fortunate part, if you want to call it as that. But it doesn't leave the fact that it's a massive area just from the map that needs a massive cleanup.
Just 2 questions. Okay, thank you, Mr. Executive Director, Gam-Petroleum. When you are giving your narrations, you explain about the National Contingency Plan Fund, who is managing this or administering this fund?
And I did not talk about fund.
No, the National Contingency Fund. Is it
Plan.
one of
Plan.
No, I said no.
plan, huh? Okay, because I thought it was National Contingency Plan or funds. Because I would have asked who was administering this fund and what is the fund covering? Is it third party damage or is it the internal damage fund? Because that would have answered where Keba was going
Well, for
about
now,
the outside loss.
For now,
Yes.
for now, because I mean, like, yeah, as I said, we have 3 regulatory bodies. All of us have heavy fines, for Gam-Petroleum, for this one. Yeah, so we have to also realistic. What is certain for now? The cleanup is the responsibility of Gam-Petroleum. They bear the cost of the cleanup.
What are the third party damage? Is it also their responsibility?
What is that? Well,
The third party damage to the cost. Is it the responsibility of the Gam-Petroleum or
yeah, that's why that's why the third party damage. That is where you have government. That's why government comes up with laws to say you can find this and that and that and that and that.
Okay.
Because that's that's why government. But now we are talking about the cleanup.
Okay.
Cleaning up doesn't exempt you from the fine.
Yes. Okay.
You see. So at least those third party whatever, that's what the laws are there for. And so Pura, they have fines for this. NEA have this thing, GMA has all of this. But as I said, it's teamwork. It's also not a good idea for this. For a single offense, you are fined differently by team. So we still have to sit together and see what is the best way. But our priority now, so that's why up to this point, no one ever talked about fines on the industry. But the priority now is the cleanup. How do we come together to have it clean? And of course, material-wise, towards the cleanup, money will contribute, but it has to be clear that GP is taking leadership in that area.
And is the GPA, have you get any policy regarding this vessel? Was it covered? Because when such things, it should be covered, so in case there's a damage. Because if it is not covered, it means there's a great loss to GP. Because looking at the quantity and the amount he's talking about, so this policy, the vessel must have been covered, the quantity.
Yeah, product loss. Yeah.
Yes, so I think there must be product loss whereby that policy will cover the loss.
Yeah.
So it will not affect the financially on the GP. So if the policy is there, then I think the policy will handle the third party aspect of the loss.
And that's going to be our last question. It's past closing time now.
Yes.
Yes, and you would like to respond to that, and then after.
I wanted to say something about what you asked. It is a very important component, and that is really affecting this emergency response issues.
Yes.
This national emergency fund. When you look at the disaster, have a national emergency response fund. But I can remember in one of the meetings where the executive director was concerned that there is no money. It was during that windstorm, and then government have to be struggling. I see that those are some of the things that we would like this committee to really, because otherwise when disaster happens, because this emergency issues, and now you'll be thinking about how this fund can be, but that account is there, and there is no money. Like this is the situation we are having now with this response. Now we are thinking about what kind of resources what kind of resources can we mobilize to be able to carry out even the survey.
Yeah,
so those are some of the things, but actually there is an institution, as my boss said, there is an institution that is charged with that responsibility, and they have the account for the emergency response fund. And I'm also going to add something to what the PS said about this Mandinary. You have almost 200 trucks. And when you look at Mandinary, the road from Lamen to NTC, with those tanks that is carrying almost I don't know how many thousand.
47.
Yes,
45,000.
that is the disaster that we have been talking about. That there's supposed to be a way of having a bypass that is not going to really touch that area. Otherwise, an explosion of a tank there will forget about even the oil spill that we're talking about.
Okay, you see, those are the risk hazard of it. Those are the risk hazard of it. Have they engaged means of works in order to look at that hazard? Because for us, we always see the risk.
You don't have the floor now. The
Oh, you have to get it from me. But I thought they are responding to my question.
the floor. You don't have
I've
the
seen
floor.
it. Chairman, sorry. I thought they are responding to my question.
You just jumped in.
No, sorry then. I thought I was still on the floor. Sorry, Chairman.
Yes, his hand was up earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chairman.
I mean, Chair, I just want to again reiterate what Doctor is saying here. Look, I think this is a wake-up call for all of us, all of something. Like I said, we really passed a lot of blame at the table that day. But we recognize the fact that it's an emergency, but also we said, let's deal with the blame. You just asked the question whether works have been engaged. Yes, NRA has been informed that, look, now that we have so many tanks coming in through NTC, going to this, it's a ticking time bomb. Let's not wait for a disaster. It's cheaper to do a road bypass from Mandinary and going to Brikama so that these trucks can travel that route without having going through the populated area of Brikama, Farato, Busumbala, NTC to access the storage facility.
You're absolutely right.
That's something that I think we can work together. And like I said, I am imploring on the honorable members here not to waste any time in getting on the ground and appreciating this situation as it is right now.
Okay. Well, you wanted to say something? Well, I think.
Well, I was expecting a very important question which I didn't hear.
What is that?
Whether we are going to have this thing again.
What?
No, of course. Yes,
Whether we are going to have one again?
Such a major disaster, an oil spill.
Like,
Is it?
No,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you see.
No, he said it already. He said there are some internal erosions, corrosions.
Yes.
Corrosion is happening internally, and they won't know when it's gonna bust out, and they are working on alternatives. That's why I didn't ask them much about what is going to be, because he answered so many questions.
No, let me come with this to which is very important. What we intend to do going forward to minimize that risk, because we don't know what is happening in there. We intend to collaborate with the vessel owners to at least try as much as possible to do this discharge during the daytime. And Pura is also suggesting, I just received their certain directives that they are giving, that whenever we are doing this, we ensure that we have these booms, so that it will.
That was one of the agreements that we asked at the
exactly. So these are the steps.
We're going to be formally communicated.
Yes. So these are the steps that
I
we
just
are
raised this thing because people need to be, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
Pointing fingers doesn't solve any problem.
Yeah.
The reality is, this is accumulation of failures.
Yeah.
Well, then that's fine.
Yeah.
We don't get it if we want to go back to who was responsible for that.
Exactly. So
That's
because during the day, once there is a spill, we can see it, and then it can easily be contained.
Okay. I thank you very much. I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. It has been a very successful one, a very informative one. The fears that we had initially are allayed. I think we can trust that you are ready to take action to clean it up as soon as possible. Of course, we know that there are challenges, but we hope that you will be able to work on the challenges as soon as possible. This committee intends to go to Mandinary or elsewhere for a site visit, and we can't do it alone. We have to be guided, and of course, when we discuss it at committee level, we will let you know when we are going so that you can help us with some officers who can take us around. Okay. So, honorable members, sorry, I think you had a document, you brought a document. If you have any document that you think will be useful for the community, can you please share it with us? Yes, we've got that, and DP, I think the director was. Do you have any document that you want to share with us?
No, it's the same document we have.
Is
it you who have?
No, you yourself. I think you are the certain document.
You are saying the one that somebody signs and you sign.
Okay, this one.
Yes. Well, if you can.
This is the one that. This is the one that establishes the situation before
the discharge begin and after the discharge. We don't need
No,
you
no,
need
that one.
That is for internal.
That's for internal.
So, I think this is a committee, new committee. We have the whole 5 days ahead of us, so we certainly will have more engagement with you on a lot of issues, not just this one. We are even thinking about looking at some legislations. I think it is very, very necessary because there are certain things that, certain environmental issues that we need to legislate against, and we also understand that we also need to look back at all legislation and see if we can make some amendments to those legislations. So there is a whole host of issues that we are going to engage you on. This is the first one. Of course, we are coming back to you again as per our schedule. We have scheduled all of you for a briefing session with the new members of the National Assembly. We are interested in knowing what you do, how far you have gone, what you need to do, and all those things. So we are all going to engage all the institutions under the remit of this committee. The schedule for that has been prepared, and when the time is due, we will duly inform all of you so that you come here. And there is also another issue that is coming up, and I very soon will engage, probably on Friday, we'll send you letters to that effect. And that's the environment agency, not GP. That's the issue of sniper poisoning. This was an issue that we discussed with you earlier. We know it was banned in 2019, and it was banned, and still we are having issues with it. So it means that something is wrong, either with the legislation or with the enforcement. So these are issues that we are going to. We intend to do that tomorrow, but unfortunately there are issues, so we are going to push it until Friday. So Friday we'll get back to you so that we discuss that. So in the meantime, get prepared.
For that.
Get prepared for that.
I'll be free by then for my deputy.
Okay.
And the PS is around.
Yes. So as we started the meeting, so shall we end with prayers?
This insurance always rich.
All these you.
But it's not. You ask
questions.